Calling from a 612 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 612.
Bullprog from Minneapolis.
Bullprog. How are you, Bullprog?
I'm doing okay. I wanted to touch back in with the crew because of I don't know how I went about things last week.
How did you go about things last week?
I kind of rushed an IM as a heads up, and I could have been more tactful. So I wanted to call in with a experience that I had that might give a little insight of where I'm coming from.
Sure, I wouldn't worry about not enough tact, particularly around these parts. But go ahead.
So back in 2020, after the George Floyd uprising, I was at a protest regarding forced hysterectomies of immigrants in detention centers.
Yeah.
And I was walking around, listening, keeping an eye out, and I came across a message written in chalk, a few of them, that said, kill cops. So I found a piece of chalk and I changed kill to jail. So it said jail cops. A couple minutes later, the kids that wrote it, got up in my face and, are you a cop? Are you a fed? Libs get the bullet too, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I told them that I didn't think it was a helpful message to the organizer's purpose. And there's a college-age white person that, took me aside and was like, we have to allow these Black and Native kids to express themselves because I don't know their experience doesn't oppress people. And they're writing this stuff on the federal courthouse plaza in daylight under high-def Zoom cameras without masks on, looking highly identifiable. And they wrote it again, even bigger this time and bolder. And I didn't stop them from doing it, but I wanted to kind of make it clear that there were people there that didn't co-sign to the message. And that student that took me aside wasn't helping them in their struggle, like the core struggle. She was letting them set themselves up for some up charges if they did anything else stupid, which is what happened later that year during a midnight noise demo with everyone that was carrying quote-unquote weapons because someone moving with them was tagging kill cops and, giving a message of intent. So after that protest, I had gotten involved at George Floyd Square, which was a barricaded autonomous zone for pretty much exactly a year. And if we had followed the strategy coming from the most traumatized voices, telling us to arm ourselves and shoot back, we would have had a bunch of young leftists anxious for confrontation with police in Blood's territory under FBI surveillance, guarding barricades where anyone could and did write kill cops and did not sit behind them themselves. And these kids could have ended up dead or with serious federal charges and taken out of the fight for justice. And instead, they're able to finish their degrees, move on to the next important cause with the lessons that we learned through that year. And we continue to maintain George Floyd Square as a protest space, a living memorial, a mutual aid hub where we strategize and we keep our neighborhood activated to hold the city accountable for tangible change, to help people in their plans moving forward with how they redevelop that space. So I absolutely agree we need to hear the voices of marginalized people and people going through heavy struggles to understand them so we can figure out how to change and help make situations better and try to avoid future mistakes. And I don't want to cast any hate or pile on to Hasan. I get that the things that are being put out are just quick snippets from hours and hours of streaming, and I can appreciate some of what he does. And, I didn't think my I am was going to be read aloud. I was just trying to give a heads up.
Yeah, wait,
so
Bull
look
Rog.
into it before speaking on it.
Okay, and your example, I think, is
Easy to take.
Is easy to take, and it's and I think there's always that tension. I am a little bit less informed about the context. Like, I don't know what your IM was, and
Okay.
and
I
so
had said that he was. I said that he had been doing. I think I was like, he has been doing worse than apologia for Houthis and Hezbollah or something.
okay,
And it was taken as like you can't criticize, resistance groups.
yeah. I mean, I think,
And I could go into the examples of what made me recoil, but I that's not what I want to do.
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I think look, it's a nuanced question because undoubtedly, there is an attempt to define these groups, whether it's the Houthis or Hezbollah or Hamas, or the Israelis for that matter, in the most absolutist terms. And certainly, you can have terror tactics and be a liberation movement. And people can make, assessments, as to tactics and to efficacy, because people always, make these assessments. The Houthis, I don't think are, I don't think they're role models, as it were. There was value to some degree.
That's what I was getting at.
What's that?
And that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah,
because,
I mean, look,
I realized
there was value.
There's a lot of stuff going on. And
some of their tactics I found were valuable, right? Like somebody is at least trying to inhibit and make Israel pay a price that's associated with their
it seemed like
attacks.
the only people fighting for them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I totally
But at
get
the
that.
same time, you're exacerbating at one point the starvation in Sudan. Some of those ships are sending goods and are sending food supplies and aid to Sudan. I mean, so it's not, none of it is black and white, and I think, but certainly like the idea that there's total denial that Hamas was is a liberation movement. People can, I think it's immoral to kill civilians. People can, like I've already said, from an international law standpoint, I think Hamas probably has, more standing than most people give them credit for. I do know that the ICJ are seeking warrants for crimes against humanity, both for Sinwar and I think his number two, and Netanyahu and Gallant, and I defer to those prosecutions as to the validity of those, and so I don't want to be rooting on someone who those prosecutors, neither of whom have been convicted, but that's not That's not usually what I recommend. Is a recommendation to me, but I also think that the preponderance of, on some level, it's just a sheer propaganda war, right? I mean, there's no, like I say, that I have friends of my father's calling to ask if I'm an anti-Semite makes me feel like this is, hey, wait, maybe this isn't just like a straight on assessment of what's going on here. And so I can certainly see from a rhetorical standpoint and from a propaganda standpoint, like you don't want to show up at a gunfight with a knife, as it were. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it.
I just say, Bullprug, I appreciate you calling in, and I want to say, like, I do, like, I feel defensive about what Hasan's going through, and I know so does Emma, and we have a disagreement there, but just generally, I do think there's a tension here, and one thing, a quote from Fred Hampton weeks before he died after a Weatherman riot in Chicago, he said, "We believe that the Weatherman action is anarchistic, opportunistic, individualistic, it's chauvinistic, it's custeristic, and that's the bad part about it. It's custeristic in that its leaders take people into situations where they can be massacred, and they call that a revolution. It's nothing but child's play. It's folly. We think these people may be sincere, but they're misguided. They're muddleheads and they're scatterbrains." So, like, generally, I do appreciate all the work you've done out there, actually, in the streets, and seeing this stuff. So, yeah, no hard feelings on our part.
Yeah. Well, my closing message that I kind of wanted to get across is that, like, I care about you guys. I care about the rest of the crew. I care about all the listeners. And, like, I just don't want people to burn themselves on some silly stuff. And, like, there are ways to stay on message without taking stances out of reflexive reaction or spite. And because, like, fascists will exploit your emotions and use your reactions against you. And we have to be careful about giving in to cynicism, because that's when we start letting go of hope and turning towards darker paths. And, a community might start saying something ironically, and soon enough people are just saying it, and the memes become what they actually mean, like what happened with 4chan and Pepe and all that stuff. So we have an adage that we use at George Floyd Square about a snow globe, where something will come and shake you up, and it will be hard to see for a minute, but if you take a moment to settle, the vision of the core goal becomes clear again. So, yeah.
Well, Prague, appreciate
my heart
it.
goes out to everyone.
Thank you. Really appreciate your comments. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.